Another cool syntactical feature is called text blocks. Is in the GEP number 368. It has actually introduced as a preview in Java 13, and now we see a second preview in Java 14. As with other examples and other videos, we are gonna follow the same pattern. First of all, we are gonna look at the motivation. Why did we need this syntactical enhancement? Then we are gonna look at how the syntax is itself, diving deeper into the description of this feature. We also want to have a comparison with other languages. Particularly, I took JavaScript's template literals, and I have a very cool example prepared for this. Stay tuned. It's gonna come fairly quickly. As I said, this is a second preview for Java 14. We had it in Java 13 already, and there are going to be some enhancements between these two versions. And last but not least, maybe a little bit less important, we're going to briefly look at some new string APIs. The source code for these examples is hosted in class textblocks, available in package com github kbnt java14.tb. Let's look at our first example about text blocks, and we'll start with the motivation for this particular feature. Now, I'm pretty sure every developer that is going to see this video saw at least once in his developer lifetime syntax that look like this. You have essentially a string that is a very long line, like typically a SQL statement. I've seen this a lot throughout my career, and having this into a single line can look pretty bad. It's not very nice to see. IDEs developers came up with all kind of tricks to actually beautify the code, and one common technique is actually to split the code across multiple lines, as you see in this example. So we take it, we use the plus operator, and we essentially have to beautify it in using \n, introducing our own new lines. But in the end, whatever we do, it still doesn't look very good. Now, with text blocks, which is syntax that looks like this, as you see, three double quotation signs. It starts with 3 double quotation signs. It ends with another set of 3 double quotation signs. You can express everything into a much nicer way. As you can see, no more need for \n. This is really one string. Let's run the example to see what output is going to produce. You see, this is the old way to write it, as we've marked here, and this is the new way of writing it. In the next example, we're gonna dive a little bit deeper into the syntax of this feature. So let's take a text block like the one in this example. As you can see, we use this syntax, 3 double quotation signs. Now, be aware that the first character in this string is gonna be this exclamation mark. That is because all this space, which is called incidental white space, is gonna be eliminated, right? I'll explain in a little bit how that works, right? So essentially, the first character we are gonna have is the exclamation mark here. The choice for using 3 double quote signs is that the designers of the language wanted us to be able to leverage a single quotation sign without necessarily escaping it. However, if we want to use 3 of them, we should escape at least 1, like in this particular example. You can use \n for adding new lines, but this is not really recommended. It's permitted, but not recommended. Now, let's talk a little bit about the policy of eliminating the significant the incidental white space, and we're gonna talk about significant trailing line policy and what is a determining line. In this particular case, because we moved the terminator 2 positions, right? The incidental white space is all the white space we see here, right? So if I go on this line, this space that I just highlight right now is going to be eliminated. Now in the next example, because we had text that was before the terminator, right? You can observe this difference here, right? We obviously cannot cut this particular text, as this might potentially be useful text for the developer. So it's all the space is gonna all the incidental white space is gonna be up to here. That's it. All right. And other capabilities, we can definitely use all the escape sequences that we were aware of. I'm not sure if this is going to be very important, but what is important again is that you do not need to escape anymore the double quotation sign. I'm going to jump a little bit ahead to what I would call my favorite example from this particular video, which is Inception. For the guys that are watching that have watched the movie Inception, you will immediately get the idea. So in the movie, the concept of a dream in a dream in a dream is actually presented. What we do in this example is that we are going to use text blocks from Java to define a JavaScript function. And inside this JavaScript function, we are going to use JavaScript template literals, which are a similar feature to the text blocks from Java. Now, in our scenario, what we want to essentially achieve is to determine if New York City, the hours when New York City was considered hot. Let's say hot will be more than 33 degrees Celsius. What this function, this JavaScript function will do is going to generate a select statement that is going to dynamically take the city name and also do a conversion between the temperature in Celsius and the temperature in Fahrenheit. Now, this particular example might be a little bit hard to grasp. I strongly suggest that you take a look at the source code and you run it by yourself. But again, we talk about template, the text blocks in Java, and template literals in JavaScript, all to produce a SQL statement. So here it is. All right, so to describe what's going on here, we initialize the JavaScript engine, and at some point in time we call the JavaScript function that we define in the text block. This is the function name. These are the two parameters, the city and the temperature as Celsius. They get passed into this template literal that I'm highlighting right now, and some automatic conversion happens. The city is taken as it is, but the temperature is converted into Fahrenheit. And then we generate this string, which we actually display here. That's pretty much it. We said that this is the second preview of the text blocks. It has been introduced in Java 13. Now we are Java 14. And between this transition period, right, for the second preview, the developer community came with some feedback. And there have been some changes. Let's look at what generated this feedback. I have here an example that shows a smiley face, right? And you see all this space that is filled up, right? Now we know that during the processing of these text blocks, we are going to have an elimination of the so-called incidental white space, which means that in this particular case, all the space that you see here, right, is going to essentially be cut. Now, some of the developers said, hey, you know what? Sometimes I really want to use this particular space that is here. It's useful because that's my use case. So the language designers introduce a new escape, which is \s, and this can be used as a fence. So if you put here \s, it will essentially block the elimination of the incidental white space. So let's look at the example. Let's run it and see how it produces. You see, when we try to display this particular smiley face, as I said, the space was eliminated to here. Well, if you let me maximize this. Well, in the second case, we can see that all the space has been preserved. All the white space has been preserved. The other enhancement, which can be familiar for a lot of the developers that are watching this and are familiar with the Linux operating system, is the capability to split one line, which can be very long, into multiple lines, but in the end still consider it as a one-liner. And I just got inspiration for a one-liner joke, which is, what are the shark's two favorite words? Man overboard. Now if we write it like this, we can observe it's three lines, but we really want to convert it into a one-liner. So because we used the backslash character here, this entire text is going to be considered a one line. And actually you can see it here in the output. It's part of the same example. You see? That's it. One logistical item that I actually forgot to present during the videos is the fact that you can see I'm having a terminal in my IDE, and for the example we just seen, don't think that this breakage here is introduced by Java. This is actually the terminal trying to wrap the words. It has a limit. Now I will conclude this particular video with the mention about strip ident. This is a new method that has been added to the Java long string class. It's not that important. Very likely we as developers are not going to use it in practice, but I strongly recommend you that you look over this example here to actually understand how the compiler processes these text blocks. It's actually quite interesting. At some point in time, I even believe that we might see a bug, but one of the Java developers from Oracle actually replied to me and clarified the topic. Look at this example. As I said, it might not be very useful for your development career in the future. I don't see situations where you would actually need to use it in practice, but it's good to have an understanding on how the compiler actually behaves. See you at the next video. Thank you.